John Rhodes statue from UCT rages on. Rhodes was a British colonialist, businessman, mining giant and politician. He has been referred by some as the founding father of colonial oppression in South Africa. Rhodesia, now known as Zimbabwe, where he's buried, was named after him. So was Rhodes University in Grahamstown. Well, to provide some analysis on the Rhodes statue is Professor Wendy Isaac-Martin from UNISA's Archie Mafeje Research Institute. Good afternoon, Prof, and thank you for your time on the PM News Desk once again.
Good afternoon.
Prof, this isn't just about the physical removal of a statue, or is it about how we coexist and how we shape our country going forward?
I think that removing the statue is not going to achieve anything substantial. I think that as South Africans, it's probably important for them to know who Cecil John Rhodes was and what he represented accurately. To a large extent, he was a product of his time. He was an individual that represented what the British wanted, which was you come to Africa, you conquer, you subjugate, you exploit, and you enrich yourself. The adage was actually that when you come to Africa, you make sure you are born and you die in Britain or in Europe, but when you come to Africa, you come, or any other colony, you come to enrich yourself. So we need to look at him from that perspective, that he was an individual who came to enrich himself, and he certainly did. I think that in terms of history, we must not erase history because we don't like it. I think it's important for us to actually remember it. We should certainly add to it, but I don't think that we should just erase it. The problem with erasing aspects of history is that we leave the space open for these individuals to be reinterpreted and redefined in a completely different manner in time to come. In future generations might decide that they will resurrect him and put him in a positive light, and that will create more complications than what we have right now.
The arguments by some, Prof, that like UCT SRC President Ramabina Mahapa, you just heard the clip before this, saying that removing the statue won't necessarily erase parts of South African history because people simply will not forget. Do they have a point?
Yes, I think that, the statue represents a particular historical period. I don't think that whether it is there, whether it isn't there, is going to make any difference. I think that how do you correct the past? You can't correct the past. What you can do is that you can implement legislation that would help to change the present and how you look into the future. So when he says that, we've got to be cognizant of our culture, our experience, he's absolutely right. But you certainly cannot correct the past. It's there. It's been experienced. I think that the other issue is that, we only need to look at the post-Soviet Union. In December 1991, they removed statues of Lenin and Stalin. And what was the experience for the ordinary people? They had the emotional experience for a short period of time. And there was a slight ideological change, but there was no paradigm shift. So nothing really changed for the average person.
How do South Africans begin to claim the space that they coexist in, Prof? How do they begin to challenge the normative structure and begin to replace it, bearing in mind that these physical institutional symbols have on the public consciousness?
That's an interesting question. I think that it must be remembered that people have very short memories, and that using the past to diagnose problems of the present is always very tricky, and I think it tends to be largely a political platform than rather dealing with issues of the present. I think that if we want to talk about social cohesion, then we need to look what's happening now. It's the same with, we can't talk about constantly blaming others, going to look at their experiences, saying that you've benefited from the past. We need to make this change. We need to look at things differently, and we need to move forward, and you need to move forward together. I'm not saying that those who benefited from the past are somehow facing a clean slate. No, they have to take responsibility for it, and they have to accept the fact that they did benefit. But I think that we cannot constantly vilify the past. It's not going to help us where we are right now.
Prof, very quickly, what should a cohesive and unified society be characterized by? For many of us, we were not fortunate enough to be born into such a society, and it remains an idea or vision for now.
I think that that's where our terminologies that have been raised, such as reconciliation, the African Renaissance, social cohesion, reconstructing identity, becomes so important. And we mustn't just allow them to be words. We must actually implement these, and we should actually familiarize ourselves with it. There needs to be a concerted effort to show people what it means to be part of the African nations. What are we talking about when we speak of social cohesion? What do we mean when we talk about this collective South African identity? You know, does it include all South Africans equally through all time? You know, what does it mean? And I think that we need to move beyond terms and actually start implementing things and actually start taking action to actually show people what do we mean, so that the broader population can internalize this, so that it means something to them substantially and not just you know, something fleeting.
Professor Wendy Isaac-Martin, we're chatting to her from our Pretoria studios. Thank you so much for your time on the SABC News Desk.